As promised, I have the edited interview with Max Blumenthal on Going Underground. Max is talking about the Bondi massacre and the group hosting the Hanukkah event at Bondi Beach. You can watch the full interview, Affshin Rattansi's Going Underground, either on Rumble or on X and other platforms. If you don't know who Max Blumenthal is already, Max is Jewish. He's also the chief editor of The Grey Zone. Max is a brilliant source of independent journalism. This guy's an absolute machine on just about everything from Gaza to Ukraine, to Venezuela, and American politics. So here's the part of the interview with Max talking about the massacre at Bondi Beach.
So we can expect more busts, perhaps related to fake anti-Semitism. I know the world has been watching the atrocity in Australia, a British colony founded, of course, on genocide itself. We're approaching 100 years since the Coniston massacre, when Aboriginal men, women, and children were killed. What did you immediately think, before we get to the massacre itself, of the fact that Netanyahu was so quick to exploit it, an ISIS-linked attack, for presumably a war on Iran?
Yeah, I should have mentioned in the case of the FBI bust, Free Palestine stickers were placed in the photos next to the bomb-making materials. So obvious attempt to also include Palestine solidarity activism as the perp. Now we see the same thing in Australia, and we've been seeing this for months leading up to this very real and horrific mass shooting on Bondi Beach. And I've been saying for the past 2 years, just by checking the pulse and feeling the vibe of Zionist reactions to the world after October 7th, that fanatical Zionists have actually been, I don't even know if it's subconscious, have been kind of yearning for a mass casualty event where they could finally point the finger at all of the enemies of Israel and shut down all of their critics. And here they have it. And they have proven my point. Rather than point the finger at the actual perpetrators of this crime, who appear to be a father and son team of Salafists who have allied with ISIS, who actually were known as ISIS sympathizers to Australian state security for over 6 years and were nevertheless granted multiple firearms licenses, which allowed them to carry out this attack. They're blaming Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who recognized a Palestinian state. They're blaming Zohran Mamdani, the new mayor of New York. They're blaming the Palestine Solidarity Movement, all the Australian citizens who marched in this historic march against the Israeli genocide, the Bridges March. They're blaming Iran, of course, and Israeli intelligence is investigating Iran. Netanyahu is directly blaming Albanese, and it completely proves my point that Zionists have been almost lusting for this kind of attack because anti-Semitism is the fuel of Zionism, which ultimately allows the Zionist movement to justify Israel as a sanctuary for the world's Jews. If the world were a safe place for Jews where we were living in normalcy, then they wouldn't be able to do that. So this environment has to be cultivated. And prior to this horrific attack, which was stopped by a Muslim hero from Syria, there had been suspicious incidents of anti-Semitic vandalism all across Australia, as mainstream media at one point, about a year ago, last January, was documenting, and it's sort of, the documentation fell off the radar. Actually, Anthony Albanese, the prime minister, referred to paid actors, in his words, who were being paid by a foreign entity through cryptocurrency to attack Jewish targets in Australia. The shadow Home Secretary of the opposition made the same declaration. So what were these targets? One target was the Adas Israel synagogue in, I believe, Melbourne, which is home to a kind of anti-Zionist sect. So not exactly the choice target for someone who really hates Israel. No injuries, no one was wounded, and ultimately the criminals responsible for this were apolitical people, many of them mentally disturbed. There were another series of incidents where apolitical, semi-homeless people were arrested, and all of them said they were being paid to do this. And Iran was blamed after the Israeli Mossad provided Australia's ASIO, its intelligence agency, with a so-called tip. So let's put the pieces together. A foreign entity is paying a criminal class in Australia with no political ideology to attack Jewish targets. Who would benefit from that? It certainly wouldn't be Iran. And why would Iran attack an anti-Zionist synagogue? It doesn't make sense. Yet Australia was pressured to eject the Iranian ambassador, which was the culmination of a long-standing Israeli campaign to fracture relations between Australia and Iran. And so that campaign continues through the Bondi massacre.
Yeah, no so far revealed links between the ISIS-linked assailants and the security services. It's not like Ariana Grande's The Manchester concert, which was intimately connected with the Libya fighting group, trained with connections to MI6. I don't want to talk too long about Australia, but I should just mention that whilst, obviously, we don't back the atrocity, it's terrible for all the people that were killed, Australia arms the F-35s and the R-400 remote weapon systems that are used on Gaza. A rabbi was killed, and the Hanukkah celebrations were the Chabad Lubavitch movement. Who is that? What is that Chabad Lubavitch movement? We should say that Judaism is not one kind of generalized thing that you can just say that's a Jew. There are many different communities within Judaism.
Well, of course, and there were many people of diverse perspectives who were targeted in this attack simply for being Jewish. And, you know, Jews are increasingly targeted and resented because of Israel's attempt to claim the mantle of world Judaism and claim to be the global voice of Judaism as Israeli soldiers now take gigantic Hanukkah menorahs into the ruins of Gaza and light gigantic candles over the destroyed homes of people they massacred. There was a lighting of a menorah in the occupied West Bank city of Tulkarm. These kind of displays encourage anti-Semitism. Israel is the singular engine of anti-Jewish attitudes, and by design, because it justifies Israel's existence to cultivate anti-Jewish hatred outside these the Spartan fortified frontiers that Israel controls. So you have one of the casualties in Bondi Beach, a rabbi for the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which is deeply intertwined with Israel's fascistic settlement enterprise. The Chabad Lubavitch movement believes in that Palestinians essentially are not human. They work closely with the Israeli military, and this rabbi himself had gone to Gaza and participated in the genocide, blessing Israeli soldiers as they destroyed homes, as they massacred civilians. Nothing justifies his death, but at the same time, I'm not going to memorialize or honor a figure like this. The Chabad Lubavitch movement attempts to proselytize within Judaism. And so they actually targeted me for proselytization when I was much younger, and I got to know them and understand their genocidal attitudes. It's something that helped turn me against Zionism. So this is a movement that is also very closely connected with the Trump administration, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. These are some of the Chabad fellow travelers. It's a very influential and fascistic movement. And, we should be honest about what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the hero who prevented more killing, apparently from Idlib in Syria. Laura Loomer, who apparently is able to walk into the Oval Office and talk to Donald Trump, said, no, this wasn't a Muslim. I mean, this is being broadcast a day after the scheduled release of the Epstein emails.